Ms. Rupa, much of our conversation so far has been talking about investment promotion and investment policies, but there's also the issue of investment facilitation. I know SCAP has done a lot in this space, and of course the recently agreed investment facilitation of development agreement at the WTO has been very interesting. Can you talk us through why is facilitation so important, and why is it so necessary in ensuring sustainable development in ASEAN?
Yeah, that's a very important question, because one part of, what IPAs do and what governments are trying to do is to promote the investment. But you have to actualize that investment on the ground. And that's at both the national level as well as the subnational level, especially in countries with federal structures. So what does it involve? It has many dimensions. One part of it is, of course, the transparency of information, the regulatory measures and their application. So that's a key part, having information inquiry points, having single stop sort of clearance processes, expedited approvals. That's all part of reducing the costs of doing business. Another is to improve the capacity of the officials or the agencies that are involved in actually translating the investments onto the ground. It could also have to do with better governance mechanisms and reducing corruption, for instance. It could have to do with use of digital systems, how do you actually share the data, etc. So it has many, many aspects to it. And as we can see, it's something that's really gaining momentum internationally as well as regionally. So under the WTO, for instance, we have now over 100 countries that have signed on to the Investment Facilitation for Development Agreement. And of course, many of the ASEAN member countries are also signatories to that agreement. So that really shows that it's not just about promotion, it's the translation of that investment. If we look at the ASEAN Investment Facilitation Framework, similarly, many of these same principles that I talked about, transparency and clarity, expediting approvals, using digital tools and technologies and systems to expedite processes, providing advisory services, assistance to investors, all of these are very important, and there are 11 non-binding principles which are there in the ASEAN Investment Facilitation Framework. So that's extremely important to take forward. Now, how can SCAP again partner in some of this? We've been working through the ASEAN Secretariat with the Coordinating Committee on Investment. I think this can play a very important role in actually pulling together some of the best practices, doing sharing of information, good governance mechanisms. This is extremely required. So I think the regional approach is needed. Of course, there are lots of actions that are primarily going to have to be taken at the national level, right? So for instance, if I just give you a sample of what some of these action points could be in terms of investment facilitation, publishing internationally recognized guidelines or standards of responsible business conduct, creating a special category of recognized sustainable investors, designing a corporate social responsibility coordinator, developing targeted marketing strategies, linking up local entrepreneurs with the FDI that comes in, right? Developing supplier databases, registration mechanisms, accreditation mechanisms. There is a whole bunch of things which will have to be done at the national level. At the same time, the regional approach and the support of international organizations or regional organizations like ours is also important to enable this process of sharing of best practices and developing, as I said, the regional sort of action plan so that all countries are on board together and realize what is in their best interest so that everyone's not competing and everyone's also learning from the others in terms of what has worked, what has not worked. So I think I would just end there and say that there is a lot of scope for collaboration and coordination in this area.
Thank you, Ms. Rupa.